These protesters in Mexico City say cross-border migration is changing their country's capital for the worse. Over the last decade, an influx of mostly American so-called digital nomads have moved here to work remotely and also enjoy a cheaper cost of living. Protesters say the newcomers have driven up rents beyond the reach of locals.
If they're going to live in a country, they have to contribute to that country. The first and simplest issue is legal migration. They come here with visas or no visas, and still the change in purchasing power generates these problems of gentrification and displacement.
I'm here because gentrification is just one more step towards colonization, dispossession, and the exploitation of our resources. Right now it's about the people, but it won't be long before they run out of oil, water, or lithium in other countries and come and take them from us.
Many Americans in Mexico are able to still receive high salaries in dollars from U.S. companies by working on laptops from their apartments.
The government is directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local populations who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have even documented cases of up to 60 years. In 5 years, rents have increased by 47%. This is violent for the local population. We are debating whether to pay for electricity, water, or food. Of course, we choose to eat.
Some activists blame Mexico's government for encouraging them. However, there's no simple fix. Imposing tougher visa restrictions on Americans could worsen relations with the U.S. Mexican citizens in the U.S. also send billions of dollars in remittances back to their families in Mexico. In a world where travel and communication are faster and easier than ever, these two nations are finding it harder to have neighborly relations. Wilson Dysard, Al Jazeera.
Good evening, gentlemen, and a few of you ladies that may be listening. This is Spiritual Art of War, back at it again with another episode. And this time we're going to discuss the issue that's going on in Mexico with the protests against the Gringos, or the digital nomads, primarily in Mexico City. And I actually kind of have a backstory when it comes to that. I actually had a couple of years ago had traveled over to overseas to Turkey, and I met a gentleman who's actually from the California, who was like an investor, and he owned like a condo out there in Mexico City, in a high rise, and also he owned a home out in the Bay Area. And he traveled the world. He basically was living off his investments. He was relatively young, probably I think around for someone that was moving the way he was moving, traveling to different countries. I mean, he had just came from another country. I think he came from Greece before popping over to Turkey. Then he was going to go somewhere to Asia. So, he was living over there, and I asked him, how he liked it. And he loved living in Mexico City, because his money went further. He was able to, eat good food. He was able to, use it as a place where he can go back and forth to the U.S., Mexico City to the United States. They have a lot of direct flights, so it's not something that's hard to do. It's like, one of the better locations for a digital nomad that wants to still stay close enough to the U.S. And it actually kind of makes sense, because think about it. If you're someone who has a remote job where you don't have to show up for meetings, or if you do, you might have to show up maybe once a month or once a quarter, and you can make, heck, you make $50,000. And if your company is like, hey, yeah, you can work there, you're still in the same time zone. That's where the benefit is if you're staying in this side of the world. If you're staying in Mexico City, I think Mexico City might be like Central Time Zone or something. So you are having your meetings, everything you're doing business-wise is within the same time zone. So it makes sense. And you have a lot of people that have done that over the years. So what happens is that when you have all these people, thousands of people moving to, they want to move to an area where it's like a major city, they feel safer, and then there's a lot of expats. Mexico City is one of those that, it seems perfect, because one, it's away from a lot of the drug wars that's happening closer to the border and out in the countryside. The federal capital is going to be the most, fortified, or it's going to have the most military and police presence because it is the capital. So there is an aspect of feeling of safety. However, over the years, it's caused an increase in the cost of living for those that live there. Okay, and you got to think about it. Whenever you're talking about a big major city with like 20 plus million people, a lot of those people are going to be working class. They're not going to be the super wealthy or the upper middle class. And they have like different districts. If you go to a lot of these Latin American countries, they have different districts that are divided based off of like your income and your background a lot of times. And so you have like the different levels, like your super elite, then you have your upper class, then you have like your middle class, and then you have like your working poor, and then you have like your underclass, or you're pretty much the class of people that are, probably doing odd things to get by. And what happens is there's trickle down effects of the economy of expats bringing in that US dollar. And this is what a lot of people that are American, that they don't realize. They travel these countries and they enjoy the strength of the US dollar being a reserve currency. But this has not always been the case when you look at how historically the world was. Gold and silver were the primary things that you would use to, buy goods and services in the ancient world. And now because of this, fiat currency system and this, it's really a scam system. I mean, we have to admit, even though that we are beneficiaries of it, this does not benefit other countries when you have such a currency that can do such damage to people's livelihoods. And unfortunately, there's a lot of destruction going on. I don't know if anybody's been attacked as far as physically or lost their life in this, but it's not a good look to walk around as an American right now in Mexico City. And especially if you're not one of those that are in some ways helping the people. You're assimilating into the culture. And now if you're one of those like Chicanos that speak Spanish, you can get your Spanish to a level where you can speak the same Spanish as the people in Mexico City. And then on top of that, you're Mexican or you're Latino. You're not going to probably have those problems as much. It's easier for you to assimilate. And then a lot of times those types will just rock with the upper class of those societies to where they kind of blend in. So and then they'll not be viewed as like threats to the locals. So, there's also social issues as well too, because if you have a whole bunch of gringos coming in with their American dollars, you get a certain preferential treatment from the woman. This can also make you a target for people that want to set up honey traps to try and rob you, so there's also a problem there. But as far as the ladies, when they hear that you're coming from America, you have a very big advantage when it comes to the woman as well. And one thing about Mexico City is not really set up as an American tourist zone. That's why they have these different areas like Cancun, Tulum, Acapulco. They have those places for the U.S. people with the U.S. dollars, and those people that are there that work in those cities, in those resort towns, they are already situated in such a way where it's beneficial for them as working class people when Americans show up. So that's the thing. Mexico City is not set up for tens of thousands of Americans to come there and to change the price of food, electricity, gas, water. All those things shoot up because of the presence of Americans. And you see this. If you Panama City is like that too, but Panama City is kind of already situated to take in Americans just due to the history of the Panama Canal and the history of America influence there. And that's why if you go to Panama City, I mean, they have pretty much all the fast food. A lot of the stuff that you see in America are already there. You're going to see like all your major, Starbucks. You're going to see KFC, Pizza Hut, Domino's, McDonald's, Burger King. All that stuff is there. And the prices kind of show that, there's a lot of American influence in the pricing of a lot of things. So things is not even cheap when it comes to, dining out in a place like Panama City. And I don't think that it's a good look for the way America has been posturing itself against other countries. You don't really have a good reputation. Americans don't understand that the stuff that your government does is going to have an effect on you as a traveler. Now, depending on your background, ethnicity, you might not have as many problems because you might not be viewed the same way. Or, for example, if you're a so-called black man traveling to some of these countries, like in Europe or, certain parts of Asia, they might not be as hostile if there's like some kind of a beef with America as they would be with, a white person that's an American, right? And I heard stories about that in Turkey from a guy that owns a store in Turkey, and they definitely treat you differently. And I would say they definitely treated me differently than they probably would look at as a white American. So, that's what it is. I'll probably talk about this if I get more information. But let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next episode.